So the Dhamma for today is the 6 objects of reverence. 6 things that in the Buddha's teaching are worthy of reverence, worthy of respect. The word is Garavata, Garu, which means heavy or weighty. It's taking something seriously, not taking it lightly. It's a good definition of the word religion, to be those things that we take seriously. So these are the objects of reverence in the Buddha, in the religion of the Buddha. If you want to think of Buddhism as a religion, these are the 6 things that we take seriously, revere, or perhaps worship is too strong a word, but worship in the sense of being worthy. We see them as worthy of our respect and homage, and things that we treat with great respect and care. These 6 were actually related by a deva, an angel. So they come in the Chakkanipata, the Anguttara Nikaya, the Devatavagga. It's called the Pattamma Parihana Sutta. So in the middle of the night, it was common for divine beings to come to visit the Buddha, illuminating the Buddha's resting place with a divine light and paying homage to the Buddha, and then asking him questions or relating their thoughts. And if the Buddha disagreed with them, he would correct them, and if he agreed, he would express his approval. So on this occasion, this Deva came and said to the Buddha that these, in his mind, in the Deva's mind, these 6 things would lead to the faltering or falling away of a monk. So it would lead one to not leave or lose their foothold on the path to freedom from suffering. It would not cause them to not falter. Keep them from faltering, keep them from losing their way, keep them from getting caught up in the wrong way or going back to bad habits. And he said it's if they see these things as important, these 6 things. He said, abhabo parihanaya, and be unable to fall away, to go backwards. And the Buddha, having heard these 6, agreed with him and went, more than that, went to relate what he had heard to the bhikkhus, and then added on his own reminder, saying, Nibbana sasantike, someone who keeps these 6 in reverence is close to Nibbana, or is in the company of Nibbana, close to freedom from suffering, on their way to freedom from suffering. So taking things as important, giving things respect, and taking things seriously is a huge part of what allows us to progress. There are many things in the world that we shouldn't take seriously. Money, wealth, power, worldly power. Even there's religious things we shouldn't take too seriously, like ritual and our conducting of worldly practices and ritualistic practices and so on. Even many of the monastic rules and guidelines and so on, we shouldn't take them too seriously. We should focus on what's most important and on what we should take seriously. There are things which are essential in our progress and in our attainment of freedom from suffering, and these are the things that we should revere and respect, to never joke about or take lightly. And they are the things that will, if taken seriously, if we keep them in our hearts, lead us to freedom from suffering. So the first 3 are pretty obvious, are the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. That should be no surprise. The Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha are thought to be the main objects of reverence in the Buddha Sasana. They're called the 3 jewels or the 3 treasures. There's three things that we hold to be so valuable, precious, and essential in the cultivation of good things, in the cultivation of the path which leads to freedom from suffering. So we pay homage and respect to the Buddha, we revere the Buddha. You can see how big of a part this is in the lives of so many Buddhists around the world who bow down to the Buddha, who chant as a reminder of the Buddha's qualities, who express their gratitude and their appreciation and their homage and their worship of the Buddha in so many ways. And this is a really powerful support for our practice. It's considered to be one of the 10 anusati, which are the 10 reflections, which are valuable in terms of cultivating wholesome qualities and focusing the mind. When thinking about the Buddha and giving him homage and respect, you keep your mind pure because you're thinking of someone who is so pure, unequaled in the world. The Buddha was anuttara, which means no one like him ever. There is no religious or spiritual or philosophical person in history who was so wise or so pure. We have him as a reminder of this purity, and we have him as a guide. Paying homage to the Buddha means following his example, thinking of all the wholesome qualities that he possessed, and trying our best to gain at least some measure of the same sorts of qualities for ourselves. The Buddha was and is and always will be our teacher. He is the only teacher, true teacher for divine and human beings, the true teacher that leads beings to freedom from suffering. Of course, in modern times we do not have the Buddha as our teacher. We cannot approach him and listen to his teachings and receive his guidance directly. We rely on others and we rely on books and we rely on the teachings that have been passed down. But nonetheless, the Buddha is still with us. He is with us in memory, and he is, of course, with us in the Dhamma. So our reverence for the Buddha isn't limited by the fact that the Buddha isn't here. It gives us great encouragement just to think about the Buddha and reflect and remember. Reflect on the Buddha, remember the Buddha. It gives us confidence and encouragement and gives us guidance. It reminds us of what is important in the world, keeps our minds from getting caught up in worldly things. And when we think about the Buddha, we think about someone who is so pure, so spiritual, and so wise, that it provides us with great support. The second, the Dhamma, is an object of reverence, meaning something we should absolutely take seriously. The Buddha said, when you see the Dhamma, you see the Buddha. So our reverence from the Buddha is included in our reverence for the Dhamma. We revere the Dhamma means we take it seriously, we don't take it lightly, we don't take it as a hobby. We memorize the Dhamma, we recite the Dhamma, we think about the Dhamma, we study the Dhamma. All of our study and respect and reverence of the Dhamma is the foundation of what, of course, will allow us to then practice in the right way. Even people who simply recite the Dhamma gain great benefit in terms of having the Dhamma at their disposal whenever they need it. We have from ancient times memorized the teachings, not because we couldn't write it down, but because it isn't as helpful to have it in books that we never look at, but to have it fresh in our minds by reciting and memorizing and by learning and even thinking about and trying to understand the Dhamma intellectually. We gain great benefit. We have the Dhamma. It means we have the Dhamma with us at all times. Furthermore, obviously, more important than that, our reverence for the practice of the Dhamma is of great benefit. The Dhamma is the practice, and the Dhamma is the realization of the Buddha's teaching. We revere this teaching and we respect it and we take it seriously. We consider this to be an important part of our lives, not something we do in our spare time, but something that we try to incorporate into every aspect of our lives. The Dhamma should be the way that we live our lives to the best of our extent, to the best of our ability. Because of course our protection, the benefit that it gives us will be directly dependent, directly proportionate to how seriously we take it and how much we practice it. The Dhamma protects those who practice the Dhamma. The Sangha is an object of reverence because of, again, how it's an example. First and foremost, when we think of the Sangha, means the followers of the Buddha who practiced rightly and became enlightened. We have this example of others who have practiced the Buddha's teaching, who didn't become Buddhas themselves, but were able to gain the same freedom from suffering and purity of mind that the Buddha also had. As a example, we can take their stories, we can take their trials and their challenges that they faced and overcame. We can see them even in our times when we pay attention to those who have practiced meditation and we spend time around them. We have the benefit of gaining the good example of others who are on the right path, reminding us of how to practice. The Buddha said the association with good people is the whole of the spiritual life. It's the most important thing because good qualities depend very much on the support of others and the example that others give you. More importantly, even than the example though, is those who pass on the Buddha's teaching. So as I've said, there's a great value for everyone to take the time and put out some effort to share the Buddha's teaching themselves, to share it with others, to show others how to practice and guide others as far as one is able in the practice of the Buddha's teaching. Not to put oneself up as a teacher. The Buddha will always be our teacher, but for the purpose of cultivating the Sangha, and because of this great value and reverence we have for the Dhamma. But those who share the teaching are considered to be part of the Sangha in terms of providing this guidance and handing down the teachings of the Buddha as messengers of the Buddha. It was the first thing the Buddha did after the reigns was over, his first reigns that he spent in Isipatana. He told the 60 arahants to spread the teaching far and wide, to go and travel one by one, alone, not going together but going separately, and sharing the Dhamma to as wide of an audience as they could. This is something that we pay homage to and respect and revere, and we will always revere those who share the Dhamma, those who even just recite the Dhamma. We respect and revere them, even though they may not be a part of the Arya Sangha. We consider them to be an important part of the Buddha's religion. And our reverence for the Sangha is such that when we do come across those who have practiced well, we revere and we respect them, and we're careful not to insult them or cause any sort of harm or impediment to them because of the importance that they represent and the importance that they have in terms of sharing the Buddha's teaching and in keeping the Buddha's teaching alive. And we're happy to support and protect them. The fourth object of reverence is Sikha Garavata, which means reverence for the training. Well, obviously the Buddha's teaching is a path of training, and the training itself is something that we have great respect and reverence for. Something that we take seriously, we take our practice seriously. We take seriously sila, ethics, so we don't take it lightly. We do our best to practice sila even to the smallest degree. We don't break the precepts, not because they're so important, but because they are our precepts. They are the things that the Buddha taught us, and we are determined to have great respect for the Buddha and great respect for his teachings. So we try to keep to the best of our ability the training in sila, the training in ethics and morality. We take our practice of meditation seriously. We stick to, as best we can, the teaching that we are taught. You know, when we're taught to walk in a certain way, we walk in that way. When we're taught to sit in a certain way, we sit in that way. When we're taught to direct our mind in a certain way, we direct our mind in that way. We pay homage and respect and we have a great sense of the importance of the training, not to distort it, not to allow it to become distorted, not to water it down, not to take it too lightly. We should take the training seriously, and this is something that if we revere, of course, the training, then we will put our hearts into it, and we will take it seriously. This is why we keep the 8 precepts during a meditation course. When people come to practice, they will keep the 8 precepts, not distracting themselves, not allowing themselves to take the practice lightly. Some people will practice long hours a day, even practicing day and night, as a means of dedicating themselves, giving it the utmost respect that it deserves. And of course, wisdom, we pay homage and respect, and we revere the wisdom that comes from the practice. We see it as the most precious thing, wisdom. The most precious thing is not the concentration, it's not the peace of mind that comes from calming the mind, it's the wisdom that allows us to completely let go of anything that might cause stress or suffering. It's the wisdom to see that craving is not worth it, clinging is not worth it, greed and anger and delusion, to free ourselves from greed, anger and delusion, to see clearly that nothing is worth clinging to, and to see clearly such that there is no anger or no delusion and no greed in the mind. This is the most valuable and precious thing, even in the Buddha. Among all the precious things in the Buddha's teaching, the training in wisdom is the highest. So any little bit of wisdom is something that is so precious, something we yearn for and seek out, always in our practice. The fifth object of reverence is appamada Garavata, which means non-intoxication. Appamada is the essence of the Buddha's teaching. It's another word for sati, for mindfulness. The Buddha said, when you always have mindfulness, when you're never without mindfulness, that means you are appamada. Appamada comes from the root mad, which means being drunk or intoxicated. And so this is the essence of how we cultivate training. The 3 trainings are sila, samadhi, and panya, or ethics, concentration, and wisdom. But how we cultivate these is through appamada. Our practice of mindfulness is what guides us from sila to gaining samadhi and to ultimately cultivating the deep wisdom that frees us from suffering. Moreover, appamada is the sense of the totality of the practice, taking the practice seriously throughout our lives, not just in formal meditation practice, but it means being careful and vigilant, being sober. We revere sobriety, just as a person who is an alcoholic, after they have undertaken to give up alcohol, they will realize how precious sobriety is and how precarious it can be, how easy it is to slip back into one's old ways of intoxication. But for everyone in the world, not just those who are addicted to drugs and alcohol, there are so many intoxications. Food is an intoxicant, sex, money is an intoxicant, power, praise, so many things that intoxicate our mind, that inflame the mind with greed or anger or delusion, arrogance and conceit and so on. All of these things are intoxicants. And so this purity is such a valuable and precious thing. We guard it with our utmost ability every moment. So in our reverence for the training involves reverence for how we do the formal meditation practice, you could say, but our reverence for appamada, for sobriety, for non-intoxication, means that in every aspect of our lives we try to cultivate this purity, seeing our experiences just as they are, not allowing the arising of greed or anger or delusion, not allowing for the mind to become intoxicated with lust or hatred or arrogance or conceit or any of these things that, of course, bring with them such stress and suffering. It means in everything we do, walking, we can be mindful. This is the clearest instruction of the Buddha on how to live your life. When walking, one should know one is walking. Gachanto va gachamiti bhajanati. Titom hiti, tito wa titom hiti prajanati. When standing, one should know I'm standing. When sitting, one should know I'm sitting. When a painful feeling arises, one should know this is a painful feeling, and so on. This clarity of mind, this appamada, or this clear clarity, sobriety, this freedom from intoxication is what we aim for moment after moment after moment throughout our lives. It's what we train for. And so as an object of reverence, it makes great sense to revere and respect and take this seriously because of how incredibly valuable it is to be completely sober in mind. And the sixth is Patisantara Garavata. Patisantara means hospitality. And it may at first seem a little bit out of place until you remember how important it is to have good companionship. So an essential part of the cultivation of the Buddha's teaching is to be surrounded by good people. It's why it's so valuable to have a center where people can come to practice, why we open up our homes to other people, allowing them to come and encouraging them and supporting them in their practice, giving free food and lodging and teaching, all welcoming others to come to practice. The Buddha said hospitality is an important part of his teachings, and he agreed with this angel, of course, when the angel brought it up. My teacher reminded us of this teaching quite often. Being a part of a meditation center, you often have to remind yourselves and others about this topic in particular, reminding us about the importance of hospitality, reminding us how the Buddha confirmed that this is an important part of our training because of how valuable it is to be surrounded with others who are on the right path and to be supportive of others, to be in communion with others who are on the right path, to be supporting each other and to providing a harmonious and conducive environment to the practice of the Buddha's teaching. So when people come, we remember to provide them with lodging and food, and to make sure everyone is comfortable and make sure that the center is a conducive place for other people to come. The Buddha said, when others come, we welcome them. When others don't come, we set our minds in such a way that we are ready to welcome them. The Buddha said, you think in your mind, those who have come, may they live here in peace. Those who have not come, who are intent on good things, may they come. May anyone who is intent on good things, on the cultivation of wholesome and pure and wise teachings of the Buddha, may they all come. They are all welcome here, no matter what, no matter where they come from, or to the best of our ability, we will always be welcoming and always be making enough room for others to come to the best of our ability. We take this seriously. This is an important part of our practice as Buddhists. It's an important part of what you would call the Buddhist religion, hospitality. Other religious teachings have this as well. It's something that you hear about in Judaism. It was an important part, something that was talked about quite often. Even outside of religion, you'll see that throughout the cultures of the world, those wise people in the cultures will always be welcoming of strangers, welcoming of foreigners, and it's a sign of highness of mind or exalted good qualities of mind. It's a beautiful sign of beauty, great beauty in a culture when people are respectful and hospitable to strangers and to others who are well-meaning and who come to them for help. So just like any good host, when people come to us for help, we provide them with the best help we can. We provide them with material support, and we provide them with the support of the Dhamma, providing the Dhamma to anyone who wants and anyone who looks for it. So these six, again, these were presented by this Deva who was most definitely familiar with the Buddha's teaching as the six objects of reverence. In this Deva's mind, I don't know if it was male or female Deva, but this Deva In their mind, this was the essence of the Buddhist religion, the essence of the Buddha's religion. So if you want to look at what is religion in Buddhism, it's these 6 things. The Buddha confirmed this, and furthermore said that anyone who has these 6 qualities, not only will they not fall away, if not only will they not lose their connection with the Buddha's teaching, but they will become close to freedom, closer and closer to freedom. Our respect and reverence, and seeing these 6 things as important. Everything else you don't have to take so seriously, but if you take these 6 things seriously, they will be your guide and your support, and it will be the candle in the dark that leads you to the goal of freedom from suffering. So that's the Dhamma for today.